But diversification can get quite murky. It can be a little bit confusing. And if you're unaware, you might actually realize that you have such a large portion of your portfolio in, for example, Australia. What happens if something happens to the Australian market and all of a sudden there's a lot of volatility in your portfolio that you weren't anticipating because you're so heavily weighted in Australia?
Yes. If you're not sure, like literally just Google it. Like have a look at the holdings in the ETF. Like go and have a look at what's in your portfolio and understand what you're buying and why.
The Get Rich Slow Club podcast is a collaboration between Tash Etchman from Tash Invest and Anna Christina from Perla. The Get Rich Slow Club acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we record on. From coast to coast, across land, waters, and communities, we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Any advice is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's appropriate for you.
Welcome to the Get Rich Slow Club podcast,
Where we take you from beginner to confident investor.
where we can teach you everything you need to know about investing.
So come get rich slow with us.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be comparing VAS and VDHG, two popular ETFs by Vanguard, and also discussing whether or not you should buy both of them or just one of them, because this is such a popular question. But before we dive into it, what is your money win or loss of the week?
So what I like to do is sometimes wait until I really need something, like social media things like money chats or Loom or random things like that. They all cost money. They're all on a subscription kind of model. If I really need it, I'll wait until the very last moment and then they'll have like a free month or a reduced rate and I'll use it as much as possible and then I'll just cancel it and
Like with
unsubscribe.
Microsoft Word with our book.
Yeah, well, I messed up with Microsoft Word. Like, don't even get me started about that. But I'm still bitter about that.
Oh, well.
And I wasted so much time trying to get money back. That didn't work. But I'll just try to put a reminder in my phone and take advantage of that. And then when I need it again, sign up again. So I did that recently with Skype. I had to call Canada. And then I made sure I canceled it and they're like, hey, come back. Here's a discount. You can call internationally for really cheap. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I used it for what I needed, but I have to remember to listen to my calendar because it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, I have 2 more days or whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden it's like, guess what? Now you're sucked in for the whole year because you missed your 30 days.
I am victim to that. It's brutal when they charge you for a whole year and not month by month as well after the free trial or whatever it is.
That's what happened with the whole Word thing or with Microsoft. I was very angry. I'm still bitter. Microsoft, I'm very unhappy with the way you did that.
Oh well. I am grateful for a few things I've paid for recently. I have a bookkeeper who does my quarterly VASs for me and kind of sorts out all that back end stuff for me. And I am so grateful I don't have to do it anymore because I would just not do it. And usually I used to procrastinate so much, but now it just it's magically done for me, which is perfect. And then I get to check over them. So that's been amazing. And also we went for breakfast today with Marion, who came on the podcast. I think maybe it would have
Marion Mays.
A few weeks ago. So she is just so positive and so lovely. And I spent maybe, was it $25 on breakfast?
Yeah, that was great.
But great value, just to have such a good chat and feel excited about things again. She is such a good motivator.
And my piccolo was amazing.
It looks very cute.
I had to pause in the middle of a conversation and be like, how good is this coffee?
Yes.
Because when you make coffee at home all the time, which is great, saves money, it is so nice to just kind of enjoy.
Be served.
Yeah, be served.
You remind me to be grateful for lots of things as well when you're like, oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this
outside.
coffee. I didn't have to make this coffee. Yeah, I'm outside. I'm going for food. But it is kind of important to take a moment and be grateful. So even though I was kind of being upset about the whole subscription thing, it really is important to be grateful for what we have and the lives that we live.
Yes, and grateful for the small everyday things as well, not just the holidays and the other stuff that I've been doing. Because I've been a bit guilty of that, but there's wonderful things we spend money on every day.
Yes, absolutely.
Yay. So VAS versus VDHG. These are both Vanguard ETFs. So Vanguard is an ETF provider, a fund manager, and VAS is the Vanguard Australian Shares Index ETF.
And VDHG is Vanguard Diversified High Growth Index ETF.
So let's start with VAS. What actually is in VAS?
So VAS is an Australian-focused ETF. Some of its top holdings are BHP, Commonwealth, CSL, National Australian Bank, Westpac, ANZ. So you can kind of see some of those are the top ones. BHP is 9%, Commonwealth is 8%, and so on. So that's a big portion of that fund.
So VAS is the only Australian ETF that I know of anyway that invests in the top 300 companies on the ASX. There's a lot of ASX 200 ETFs. This is an ASX 300 ETF.
Yeah, that's fair because BetaShare has the A200, which is the top 200, and VAS and A200 are often compared as being very similar types of ETFs that you can invest in for Australian specific. But for today, we are just talking about VAS.
VAS versus VDHG. So VAS is the Australian one, and they, on their website, actually, Vanguard suggests that you combine VAS with VGS, which is an international ETF. So they're kind of acknowledging on their website that this is an Australian-only ETF, and it needs to be kind of paired with something else to make sure you're getting exposure to other countries as well.
Yeah, this is a great one if you are about do it yourself. So if you want to create a portfolio where you want to have Australian specific and you want to decide what percentage you're investing in Australia, and then you can choose whether you want to invest in the US, internationally, somewhere else, some kind of thematics, whatever that might be. This is one of those funds that kind of lets you build your own portfolio.
Mm-hmm. But it's not an all-in-one, like you will probably need to buy something else with it, whether it is at VGS or it is some kind of like IVV, like the S&P 500 one, or some kind of other American, US, whatever it is, ETF. But yeah, VAS by itself, I wouldn't say is just a done complete portfolio unless there's a really specific reason you're looking to be completely in Australia. But Australia is such a small percentage of the whole world. So be mindful that we don't just want to buy Australia usually.
Yeah. So I pulled some of the data from InvestSmart, which had the percentages of what the returns are on VAS from September 30th, 2024. And in 10 years, the total returns is 8.93. 3 years is 8.45. 1 year is 21.77% total returns.
Everything's done so well in the past year.
Yeah. But this is the thing, right? Like we might have years where it's really high, like 21%, but other years it might be like minus 20%. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that's just part of investing. It goes up, it goes down. So don't always anticipate that it's going to be 21% year on year. I think Australian shares are somewhere around 9% over the last 30 years.
Yeah, but still amazing because I think Australia is often looked down on a little bit by like, we don't get as many high returns, but like it's doing pretty well.
Yeah. And the other thing is Australia has this special thing called franking credits. And in fact, you can actually get franking credits if you're investing in VAS. So as of recording, the franking credit return on VAS is 71.15%. So this is from October 1st, 2024.
So this means that of the dividend, 71% of it was franked or had franking credits attached to it. So not the whole dividend, but like almost three quarters of it.
Yeah. So this is just something to be aware of. There are some shares that you can invest in that have fully franked, and this is just partially franked. So you'll see that when you do your tax return.
Amazing. So should we buy it with VDHG as well? Let's dive into what VDHG is first. We did an episode recently comparing VDHG and DHHF. So if you want a deeper dive into those diversified ETFs, go listen to that one. But a quick refresh. VDHG is a all-in-one ready-made solution that invests in 90% growth assets, so shares, and 10% defensive or income-producing assets, so bonds. They are trying to be like a high-growth all-in-one ETF, and they've got 16,000 companies in the one fund. So that's heaps compared to VAS, which is only 300. VDHG is made up of 7 different funds, including Australian shares, international shares, hedged international shares, and more. There's bonds in there as well, emerging markets. But 36% of VDHG is actually the Vanguard Australian Shares Index Fund.
Wait, Tash, is that VAS?
Yes, it's the managed fund version of VAS. It's literally so similar, just a different structure. But like the Vanguard Australian Shares Index Fund is so like pretty much VAS.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're already covered if you purchase VDHG. You already have VAS essentially invested in it. Yeah.
But if you decide you want to buy both, let's say you put $1,000 into VAS and $1,000 into VDHG, you've essentially just increased your Australian exposure instead of diversifying further. So you're not more diversified. You've just got over like half your investments in Australian shares instead. So all you're doing is kind of tinkering with the exposure away from that optimal diversified amount and making it highly weighted towards Australia. There may be reasons for this. Maybe you want more franking credits or there's some reason you believe in Australia so much more. But I think it's just something to be wary of, that they're not really made to be bought together because you're just rebuying the same thing again.
Yeah. But this comes down to what percentage you want to have within a specific space. So for example, you know how VAS is supposed to be paired with, is it VGS? Mm-hmm. Now, you could choose to have a larger percentage in VAS. You could have 50% of your holistic portfolio in VAS and 50% in VGS, or you might, decide that you only want 10%. In this kind of case, that might be another example where you're purchasing VDHG and VAS and you want that overlap. But to your point, do you want a large part of your portfolio in Australia?
And it's murky as well. Like it's not like if you've got VAS and VGS, you can see like half my portfolio is VAS. With this, you're like, oh gosh, like 36% of VDHG is VAS. How much is that overall if I've got VAS as well? Like it just makes it harder to do the maths. So I think if you've got a reason, sure, buy both. But if you're just not sure, like think about why you're doing it.
Yes.
Like, is there a reason there? If it's,
it goes back to those questions we get from people who are like, well, I'm not sure which one, so I'm just going to buy it all. Mm-hmm. And we've done that, right? Yeah. Like we've done that in our past. We weren't sure. Oh, let's just diversify. But diversification can get quite murky. It can be a little bit confusing. And if you're unaware, you might actually realize that you have such a large portion of your portfolio in, for example, Australia. Mm-hmm. What happens if something happens to the Australian market and all of a sudden there's a lot of volatility in your portfolio that you weren't anticipating because you're so heavily weighted in Australia?
Yes. If you're not sure, like literally just Google it. Like have a look at the holdings in the ETF. Like VDHG, there's a few more steps because you've got to like Google the funds that's in VDHG. But then you can see like the Vanguard website, the homepage, you literally change between ETF and managed fund for the Vanguard Australian shares one. And it shows you like the same pretty much. So like go and have a look at what's in your portfolio and understand what you're buying and why.
So do you hold either of these?
VDHG, yes. I'm not sure about VAS. Maybe I have like a random $1,000 for ages ago, but yes to VDHG. I do own other Australian ones from my time exploring. Like I've got VETH, the ethical Vanguard ethical Australian one. I've got, I think I might have IOS from CommSec Pocket a little while ago. So like I have bought like overlapping things before, but I've tried to be a bit more intentional about it now. So I'm not actively buying like VAS and VDHG. I'm just actively buying one diversified ETF at the moment.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think like when Tash and I talk about our portfolios, we talk about holistically what we have in our portfolio. That doesn't mean we're investing in all of those. And in fact, I only invest in one or two funds out of, I don't know how many, I probably have like 15, you know? So it's just because we're sharing doesn't mean that we're actively investing in them.
And the Australian ETFs recently, or maybe not recently anymore, but they had a little war where they were all decreasing their prices, which was really fun. So I was kind of changing which Australian one I wanted to buy because I used to try and do like a do-it-yourself mix, but I was getting too distracted, so I don't do that now.
Yeah. I originally purchased A200, which was beta share, and it was, from memory, it's a bit cheaper than VAS.
VAS is 0.07%.
Let me just look up A200.
0.04. They won.
They won. Yeah, they won the wars. So I remember at that time, I purchased A200 and was really happy with that. And then I accidentally set up auto invest on Pearler when I was showing someone how to set up auto invest. I was like, oh, you can pick any share like this one that I wasn't invested in, and I left it. And then now I have like, I don't know what it is, like $500 in VAS that just kind of sits there, and I won't sell it and I won't keep investing in it. So yeah,
and it's fine. Overlap is fine. Just be mindful of it.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us, even when we are mindful.
Why don't you just sell VAS?
Yeah, why don't I? I don't know. I just don't want to deal with the tax.
I just don't want to deal with it, full stop.
I just don't want to deal with it.
Too much.
I mean, here's the thing, right? Like it's sometimes strategic to think about when you want to sell things. And sometimes depending on the tax year or what's happening, it might be more strategic to sell. If your income is lower or your income is higher, you want to be aware of that. And I just haven't really sat down to think about what my long-term plan is. And to be honest, I'm not fazed by the $500 or whatever is invested in something that I didn't ideally want to invest in. So I'm just going to let it sit for a bit. Yeah. I don't know. Deal with it at another date.
Yeah, I feel that too, because none of them are bad investments. Like VAS and IELTS and A200 and VDHG, they're all like decent investments. So it's not like I've bought like a random crypto thing and I'm scared it's going to go to zero. Like they're all fine.
Yeah.
Just not admin.
And as I move forward, I'm just trying to invest ethically, or at least in more ethical funds. And I know that that's personal to everyone. So for me, having this doesn't really align with my values or my goals, but at the same time to sit down to figure out, because there's a couple other things that I would sell from my portfolio. So I want to have a holistic plan thinking about it, as opposed to being like, no, I'm just going to randomly sell $500 worth of shares. It's like,
and then pay the fees to sell, and then also probably pay capital gains tax.
Yeah. So it's in the future bucket, but it is important to have those conversations regularly, because here's another example that has nothing to do with investing, but it does have to do with tax planning. Is I ended up selling my property last year. And the reason it made sense at that time was I had to really sit down and be like, is it advantageous to hold on to this? This is a property in Canada. And at that time, I was like, the longer I hold on to it, the less I'll get of an incentive when it comes to capital gains tax, because I've been out of the country. I'm not living in that property anymore. Anyways, long story short, it's sometimes really good to sit down, have a tax plan of when you want to do these things. So similarly, at that time, I was like, oh my gosh, right now makes the most sense for me to sell this. If I wait another year, it's less positive for me.
Yep.
I wait another year, it's going to be less beneficial. And similarly to situations like this, if you accidentally buy the wrong thing and you don't want to, it is important to have some tax planning, go talk to a tax accountant. It is really important.
Yeah, and you can optimize it a bit better. But again, like you've just given yourself options.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, when do I sell my apartment is like a great problem to have. Like none of these are, like don't delay doing things because you can kind of fix most things later on.
Hopefully.
Or change your mind. Yeah. Like of course there's times when you can't, but with this where it's like, whether you sold it this year or next year, like it's probably all positive.
Yeah. And especially like, for example, if I'm on a lower income or I'm working part-time, might be more advantageous for me to sell as opposed to being in a higher income and working full-time. So it is important to think about those things.
Yes. If you want a career break, maybe that'd be a cool time to sell, but $500 for ETFs, it's like, you're going to make $11 maybe. Yeah.
I'm talking about bigger amounts of money, but I mean, the idea and the strategy is still the same.
Yeah, definitely.
Having a plan.
Have a plan. Doesn't matter if you change your mind though.
Yeah.
So just do the thing.
Do the thing.
That's our message overall. Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. So just do it. Which one are you going to invest in? VDHG or VAS?
VDHG.
Yeah.
Because I like Diversified, I like Easy, and I like All in One. But I actually buy the other Diversified All in One ETFs. So go listen to our other episode for that one.
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, please rate us 5 stars, write a review, or share with a friend. If you're new to investing, make sure to listen to our first 10 episodes. Follow us at Get Rich Slow Club or Tash at Tash Invests or me at Ana Cristina.
This show was brought to you by Natasha Etchman, who is an authorized representative 1299881 of Guideway Financial Services, AFSL 420367, and Perla, who is an authorized representative 1281540 of Sanlam Private Wealth, AFSL 337927. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. So make sure you check out our financial services guides and read the product disclosure statement and target market determination for any investments you're considering. See our show notes for more info.